So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ashley Goldstein. I'm the Learning Solutions Manager for Women's Economic Ventures. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm joined by my colleague, Marly Dalmau, who I'll let introduce herself in just a moment. But before we get started, I just wanted to welcome you all to this Eidl and PPP update. Hopefully this is going to be an interactive session. We have lots of good information to share with you, but please feel free to put questions in the chat, and we will pause in the middle of the session to also take your questions. So thanks again for being here, and we'll go ahead and get started. And I'd love for Marly just to briefly introduce ourselves before we jump in herself.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Marly. And as Ashley mentioned, I work for WEV. I am a business advisor, and I am in charge of the Spanish QuickBooks coaching program as well. And we're very excited to be here with all of you to give you important information that will benefit you with regards to your Eidl loan. And if you have any questions regarding the PPP loan, if you have not applied for forgiveness yet.
Yeah. Thank you, Marly. So we're starting just obviously now, shortly after noon. Please mute your sound, but we do appreciate if you can share your video. We love to see who you're here. It helps it be more interactive. So understand that it's lunchtime, so feel free to be eating your lunch or doing whatever you need to be doing. And again, feel free to enter your questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to build in time for live Q&A. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why WEV is conducting this webinar about the COVID economic injury disaster loans and PPPs. The EIDLs are personal to me. I'm as I mentioned, the Learning Solutions Manager, as well as the Women's Business Center Director for WEV, but I am also an entrepreneur myself. I'm a training consultant, and I took out an EIDL myself at the beginning of COVID. I took out a loan because there was a lot of uncertainty. I was delivering in-person training. And so obviously when COVID hit, a lot of the in-person training or all the in-person training stopped. And out of fear, frankly, I decided to take out an EIDL. I didn't qualify for a PPP. I don't have staff. I'm a solopreneur, but I did think that an EIDL would help, with some of the economic hit that I took due to the fact that all the trainings that I were delivering, now obviously we pivoted and are able to deliver training online, but at the time Zoom wasn't even really a thing yet, and I took out an EIDL right towards the beginning of COVID. As the time went on, I had that loan, I had that money in my business bank account. I felt some economic security, and I did not realize myself until just about a month ago when Marly and I met to talk about another WEV program that I was already accruing interest on my EIDL. I think that lots of us out there make that assumption. I definitely did that. When the payments were deferred, that meant that the interest was also being deferred, and that was not the case. And I hadn't logged into my account and checked my interest or all of those things that were going on. I kind of just had that money sitting in my bank account without realizing that I was accruing interest. So that conversation with Marly made me think, if I did that, there's got to be people out there in the community who also are making that same assumption. And I feel like it's our duty as WEV and as fellow entrepreneurs to let people know that they're not alone, and that to get educated about this, to take control of their finances, is an important thing. So we're not alone. I did a little bit of research about EIDLs, and EIDLs have actually been around for a long time. This is a specific COVID one that the government made funds available due to the pandemic. And since the start of COVID in March 2020, over 500,000 people in California alone took out an EIDL. And it's a crazy amount of money. So $56 billion of EIDL in California alone funds have been distributed to entrepreneurs and businesses across California. So, if that's California is the highest state, but if you can do some research, I'll share these slides after the session today, and you'll be able to click on that link and you can see a state-by-state breakdown of how many dollars and how many people have taken out COVID EIDLs. Most people got their loans in the summer of 2020. I got mine in the early summer of 2020. Payments were deferred to June 2021 and then again to June 2022. So really payments are not going to come due. You're not going to be required to make any payments until this coming June, in about 3 months from now. As I mentioned, I hurt to learn that interest on loans at 3.75% was not deferred. So just because the payment date deferred does not mean that your interest was deferred. So what do you think? Put in the chat. When do you think you began to accrue interest on your EIDL? When did interest begin to accrue? Just put a guess in the chat. When funded. Penny's right. Ding, ding, ding. I did not know. I didn't realize that right away. I maybe made a silly assumption, but I thought that interest would only start accruing once payments were due, but exactly correct. As soon as you got the money, as soon as your loan was funded, you began to accrue interest. So at that 3.75% rate, if you got a $50,000 loan, you're paying nearly $5 a day or almost $2,000 a year in interest alone. So I don't know, the size of the loans that you took out, but I think the average loan is actually higher than that. So the lower loan amount of 50K, people are accruing interest of close to $2,000 a year if they're not paying against their principal. Okay, I'm going to turn over to Marly to talk about the different platforms to help you get educated about your loan, your EIDL.
So I think one of the reasons why most people, or at least the ones that I talked to, were not aware is because the SBA stopped sending statements. They began sending statements with the minimum payment due, which was last June. And then because they decided to defer that one more year, the statements stop, and out of sight, out of mind for a lot of small business owners, and even not so small business owners, as to when they were supposed to start making payments. They were not sending statements with the accrued interest, the current balance, the payment, and the minimum payment that they were sending in most of the time was not even enough to cover the interest that had already accrued at that time. And to make matters worse, the accessing on how to get the information was not readily available. The statements only mentioned the pay.gov and the instructions on how to start making payments. And the minimum payment was just a number that, I don't know how they figured out that number, that you were supposed to, if you wanted to. And the statement says it's optional if you want to start making payments. But to actually access the current balance and accrued interest, that was not readily available at first. The SBA has made changes to their website to where now it's way easier to understand the process of making a payment and how to access your current balance on those loans. And I'm not sure how many of you actually have signing into these websites and actually looked at their current balance and are already making payments. We would like to know if how many of you know and are already making payments and are caught up with interest and are now paying towards principal.
You can just go ahead and raise your hand.
If you want to talk, raise your hands. We just want to know the kind of audience that we have and just to make sure as to how detailed we need to go into the explaining how to access this information. So do any of you, okay, so Mary's not making payments yet, and she does not know how to access the information. Anybody else that would like to share? Let's see what we have.
Penny says she's making payments.
Okay. Penny, have you been able to get your history?
Is it okay if I unmute and not use the chat?
Yeah,
yes, that would be great. We really would. Yes.
Okay, cool.
We just want this to be more of a conversation to see if we can help you, and for you guys to spread the word as well.
Okay, so I somehow found out that they were accruing interest right away. So when they said to go to payment.gov to start paying, I just did whatever they suggested at that point. So I'm just paying the minimum that was suggested. I don't know where that number came from, like you said, but that's happening. And then I also they sent out another email to add an additional funding, which was deferred for 2 years. So I actually have one from the summer of 2020, and then I have one that I just received, and I'm trying to figure out how those merge or how they interact with each other, if they're both deferred. I don't know any of that. And I don't know where the statements are or anything. So it's very blind right now.
Okay, so this is kind of what we have found out, that people are not, because out of sight, out of mind, no statements, not knowing how to access the information is what we would like to help everybody. So as you mentioned, the pay.gov is the site to pay, but that site unfortunately does not give you the information regarding the loan and the balance through today, if you wanted to. So we'll walk you through the steps on how to create this, because you have to sign in. You'll have your own credentials. I would highly recommend that you access the Capital Financial System regularly. The login credentials expire after 30 days of inactivity. And it's kind of like a hassle to go through the process of validating your account again. But this is how the first website that we have here, it's to make payments, but it doesn't tell you how those payments are being applied against principal or interest. If most of you have not made any payments at all, then the minimum payment suggested is not enough to cover the interest that has accrued. Therefore, your principal is not being reduced, and now you're paying interest on interest. And the balance grows fast on these accounts. It's important to sign in every time you make a payment so that it records the history. You have the access to make a payment without signing in, but it does not keep track of the transactions. And there is a section of pay.gov that you can look at payment history, but you will only be able to access if you sign in. The most important website that we recommend you to visit right now, and we'll send you instructions, is the Capital Access Financial System. This is the site that houses your loan information, the principal, the accrued interest, and every time you make a payment, it'll tell you how that payment was applied against principal and interest. If you start making payments now, all those payments will go against interest. It'll apply first to interest, and it's not until you have paid all interest accrued that the next payment will go against principal, and that's when you're going to start reducing the principal. We highly recommend that if you have the ability to make a payment, to catch up with the interest. You may be surprised when you're logging into these websites what the interest accrued on your balance is, but if you have the ability, pay it all. And then going forward, all payments will now start applying against both principal and interest. And obviously, as you know, at the beginning of a loan, the way it amortizes, most of it goes to interest and a little bit to principal. Do you guys have any questions regarding any of this information so far, or anybody wants to share? If they have tried to and they couldn't validate their account, if they don't know their loan number or any other difficulties or obstacles you may have had to access this information, or any questions.
Okay, so we can, the screenshot of that, what you see on the right side where it says make a SBA 1201 borrower payment. I just took a screenshot of that because when you do go to the pay.gov website, you'll see there you can make payments to the government for so many different things. For EIDL, you'll see that it's a 1201 borrower payment. So you follow that link to make a payment there. And the CAF system, the Capital Access Financial System, it honestly took me about 30 minutes to figure out how to log into that system, to build a password that the site agreed with, to put all the required information in. So, be prepared that, when you're ready to log into that CAF system, to have obviously all of your information and to have some time and patience to log into the CAF system when you're ready to do that, because it did take me about 30 minutes to set up my account.
I'm going to put in the chat the link to the SBA with now finally they have step-by-step instructions on how to start making payments towards your EIDL loans.
Yeah.
Sure. So that you can just click on that link and at least start exploring the site and the information.
So the other, the screenshots that I have that I'm sharing here is the home screen of the CAFS. And what I couldn't figure out when I first logged into the system was where I found my loan information. So, because it looks just like this, and I didn't realize that you have to click on this drop-down menu where it says borrower, and then you'll see borrower search, and then you can, click on that borrow search, and then you can, put in your name, your loan number, and it'll show up right away. But just know that, the home screen looks like this, and then you have to click on that upper left-hand screen that with a drop-down of borrower search in order to access your loan information.
Yes, and that's what it will show what the current balance is. And if you have made any payments like Penny has, then it'll show you how those payments have been applied against the outstanding balance.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
When I applied for this loan, there was a thing that came up on the internet through the SBA that said the first $10,000 of that was not, did not have to be paid back. So I only took the 10,000.
So that would be the advance. So there was an EIDL advance, which was 1,000 per employee. So that means you have 10 employees?
No, at that time I had 5.
Okay, because the EIDL grant was a kind of like the PPP Forgivable. You did not have to pay that back. That the only thing that would affect was the amount of PPP loan that could be forgiven if you did not use all the funds for the intended purposes. But if you go to if you create these credentials and access the information, it'll give you what you actually, if you have any outstanding loans. The advances, and most people that received the EIDL loan did get the advance. And like I said, as far as I know, it was 1,000 per employee. And they did, so I'm not quite sure how you ended up with 10,000 if you only had 5 employees at that time, but it could be.
Yeah, I don't know, because when I pulled it up, and I have it here from the SBA, it says their economic injury disaster loan program provides small businesses, blah, blah. The loan advance will provide economic relief to businesses that are currently experiencing a temporary loss of revenue. Funds will be made available within 3 days of the successful application, and this loan advance will not have to be repaid.
Yeah,
and that was up to 10,000. So I mean,
And
this
you
was
would
off of
receive-
their website.
Yes, so, but we would advise you to just make sure that you have no outstanding loans.
No, I've never paid anything back on this. So
Well, and
outstanding,
if you open an account, if you go through, and we will send you a step-by-step instructions on how to open the account, you can also click on the link. And you should have received some sort of documentation that kind of show what it, like I said, the grants, just like you said, were free. They did not have to be repaid. And it was dependent on the number of employees you had. So yes, you could very well be, you don't have any outstanding loans with the SBA, but I would advise you to make sure of that and not to assume that that's the case.
no, I do not have anything else. This was
Okay.
the only thing I took from them was the 10,000. And I only took it because it said it did not have to be repaid up to 10,000. It didn't say anything about how many employees, et cetera, at that time.
Okay. And it was not the PPP, right?
No, it was the SBA. It was an Eidl EIDL advance.
Yeah, the advance is the grant, and yes, those were not, those did not need to be repaid.
Okay, so is there any way I can find out, yes, this, I do not have to repay it, or yes, I do? I tried going on the website last night through the SBA, and they would not allow me to access anything on it.
Did you go to this Capital Access Financial System website, Myrna?
No, I did not. I didn't even know about this one.
Okay, so that's the website that you need to go to find out if you owe anything.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
I recommend that you go. Here's the URL again. But again, I'll send these slides out after the webinar. But this number 2 here, the Capital Access Financial System, is where you're going to want to go to find out any information if you owe anything.
okay, was that the caweb.sba.gov?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. You've been such a big help. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
there's a phone number later in the presentation that you can call to if you
Yeah,
have
I can-
any questions.
Yeah, I can skip ahead to that. I'm curious if anybody has PPPs on the call. If anybody wants some information about PPP, or if we can just stick with talking about EIDL. We can just do a quick thing about forgiveness, but I did want to share this phone number as well with all of you, because there is a live person that you can talk to about your disaster loan, your EIDL, and it's separated by region. The SBA has separated the United States. I can't remember how many regions, but California falls into this region where we call the El Paso Center, and that's their phone number on the screen there. It's 1-800-487-6019, and just call with your loan number on hand, and they'll be able to also assist you with any information that you're looking to find out about how much you owe, what, if you've made any payments, all of those things. They should have access to that information and can help you.
Thank you.
Mary's asking if there's going to be a third PPP, and at this point, I'm not quite sure, since now they're kind of trying to reduce the amount of available money out in the system to control a little bit of the inflation.
Mm-hmm. And Lisa's saying, luckily, she's also had her 2 PPPs forgiven. The FYI that they did not include the $10,000 EIDL advance in that forgiveness. So that was a separate thing, Lisa. I'm assuming yes.
Yeah, the way that they calculated the amount of PPP that was forgivable, the advance was taken into consideration. So they use the funds from the EIDL advance to offset some of your PPP, but most people had plenty of expenses to go around where they were able to justify spending the PPP plus the advance in qualified expenses so that at the end everything was forgiven.
Mhm. Well, we do have these slides about PPP forgiveness, but it seems like, this is not going to be relevant to most of you since you've already gotten your PPPs forgiven. So I'm not sure if we're going to want to cover this. If anybody wants us to talk about this, please let us know and we can go over this information. But by now, I think most people have applied for and gotten their first 2 rounds of PPP forgiven. And Lisa shared that she thinks originally we're going to include the $10,000 in the EIDL in the PPP forgiveness and that we would have to pay that amount. And then they changed it at some point. Okay. Well, we want to make this an open forum, any questions you have, but these are our key takeaways, essentially. Really, as we started out the webinar, you've been accruing interest the moment your EIDL got funded. Make sure you log into that Capital Access financial system as soon as possible. Make sure you set aside at least half an hour of time to, set up your account and log into that system and go to that borrower search screen and find out what your loan amount is and how much interest you owe, because you have been accruing interest. And then once you find that information out, determine how much you want to pay. Go to pay.gov and make a payment. If possible, pay all the interest and really, think about if this money is putting, is going to work for you. If it's worth it for you to keep this money, if you need it in your business account, or if at that rate of 3.75, if it's better for you to simply pay it back, to really consider if it's worth it for you to hold on to those funds. Set up the monthly payments in the pay.gov system. You will be required to do so starting in June. And, again, the forgiveness of the PPP is another subject, but it sounds like most of you have already addressed that. Mary asked, will the EIDL payments or interest be deductible? Mary, do you have, or Marly, do you have?
Yes, interest on loans, it's deductible as the business expense. And then what the money that you borrow is used for actual expenses. So those expenses are deductible. The principal is obviously not deductible, but the expenses, whatever you did with that money, it is a deductible expense for the business. So if you receive $50,000 on EIDL and you're using those $50,000 to pay your employees, therefore then payroll is deductible plus the interest on the loan, but not the full payment. It's what you do with the money is what's tax deductible or deductible to the business, and obviously tax deductible, and the interest, but not the full payment. Does that make sense? Or if anybody has
yeah, that does make sense. I have been using those funds just to pay my regular business expenses and my own salary. So you're saying that the salary part would also be deductible?
Yeah. So what kind of an entity are you?
I'm a sole proprietor.
So no, what you pay yourself, it's your net profit. So when you prepare
Right.
your Schedule C on your tax return, what you pay yourself is not deductible. That's pretty much your net profit.
Right.
And that's what you
Okay.
pay taxes on.
Right. Great. That's very helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And then Lisa asked if the SBA will begin sending monthly payments starting in June. I would certainly hope so, but I think you may have to opt in, is my guess. And I think you can opt in on the CAFS system to get your monthly statements sent to you via email. But I don't think that they're automatically, I would be shocked if the government was on top of things to be automatically sending monthly statements starting in June 2022. Frankly, I don't think that's going to automatically happen. I think that you probably have to go in and opt in or log in to make that happen. And again, you can always call the El Paso loan servicing center to inquire about that as well. And if you do want to start getting monthly statements sent to you, to ask them how you can set that up.
Catherine had a question, and that is the one thing that we would advise for you to start thinking why you are keeping the funds, and you have not paid anything back yet, correct? You don't know what the current balance on that loan is. And you're muted, Catherine. I think I
was muted. I have been making automatic payments each month, but I believe it's just the minimum. So I received 150,000, and I've been making the minimum payment, I think, of $871 a month for about 6 months or so, as soon as I got notification of the loan. But real quickly, I thought I had logged into something called pay.gov/public/home, and not that other site that you mentioned. Somehow I've set up automatic payments and
Through pay.gov. Yeah, you can set up your automatic payments through pay.gov. So there's two key platforms. One is pay.gov, where you make your payments, and you can also set up recurring payments. And the second system is where you find the information about the loan.
okay. So
Pay.gov is like a black hole. You go in to make your payments. You know
It is.
about it. It's a yeah.
And that's why it's very important, Catherine, that you now open an account, your account with the Capital Financial System, because you need to track that they receive all of the payments and how they have been applied.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, if you took out 150,000 in the summer of 2020, and you have only been making the minimum payments for the last 6 months, you have a substantial accrued interest on that. And those minimum payments were not enough to cover the principal that had already accrued. You probably are upwards of $6,000 for year one, which was from summer 2020 to summer 2021, and now we're almost into summer 2022.
Wow.
So you're gonna be up for a little bit of a unhappy surprise.
Yeah, so definitely.
So
Yeah.
log in, and if you don't need that money, if you're only sitting on that money for fear, don't pay back as much as you can right now, and keep
Guess what I'm doing?
enough for working capital.
Yeah, because I mean, I rave about getting rewards on my credit card because I finally got that paid off, but this is like terrifying.
Yeah, it's just sitting there. Honestly, I also just paid mine off today. I kept like $1,000 just because I don't honestly even know why I did. But if you can pay it back, it's just sitting there, and you're not, I mean, it's just sitting there accruing interest. You're going to end up paying from it more than they gave you for what?
Yeah, good point. Yes, and I'm jumping on and making a profile right now.
Yeah.
Because that is terrifying.
So there was another question, I think Penny asked, if there's any chance the EIDLs will be forgiven. I think there's no way of really knowing. My guess is no. But I don't know, Marly, if you have any other.
And that is, if you click on the link I sent to you guys, that's the first thing it says. These loans are not forgivable and must be repaid.
Yeah.
It's right off on the home screen for the COVID EIDL. And if you're sitting on $20,000, what Ashley said, it's what you guys need to think about it. Why do you need this money? This money, the intent of these loans is to use as working capital. So you are using the money to produce income and keep the business running. If you're only sitting on the money for fear that you're not going to have, then you need to take a hard look at your business, because your business should be producing enough income to support itself. Sitting on a loan for fear might not be the best financial decision, business decision, since you're accruing interest and not working the money. Let's see, we have another question. Yeah, I would add the first thing you need to do is to look at the balance, because like Ashley calculated, 50 on a 50,000 at 3.75%, annual interest rate is about $2,000 a year. So if you borrow 150,000 for the first year, you are looking at about $6,000 in accrued interest. And that's just for year one, and now we're almost into year two. So you may be upwards of $10,000 in accrued interest on 150,000 loan. And unfortunately, now you're paying interest on interest because the interest is accrued on the balance, not only on the principal.
So it's compound interest. So think about
Yes.
it as well. It's $2,000 for a $50,000 loan. And then next year, if you don't make any payments, it's $4,000, right? And then beyond that, in the third year, is it 16? Or it just keeps compounding interest. And, you know, for all of us on this call, it's great that you're here and you're getting educated about it. But it pains me to think about, you know, all the other people, over 500,000 people in California, took out these loans and do not know that they're accruing all this interest. So that is just really scary.
And you know, sadly, that's what happened with the whole student loan. They did not educate the people taking loans that the interest will not stop accruing. And now people have been paying these loans for 20 years and they are still not able to finish paying because the interest just keep accruing and accruing, and the balance kept growing and growing. And then now they are stuck with these loans for years and years. And we don't want we don't want that to happen to any of you. It's just be on top, see what this means. And if you can pay back at least the interest and then set up a monthly installment payment treated, well, you're going to be forced to come in June. However, the minimum, like I said, is not enough to cover the principal. I'm sorry, the interest. So you're going to end up having to make a catch-up payment. So just review your finances, review your balances, review what you can pay right now, and see how much, and pay the maximum you can on a monthly basis going forward.
You know what, could we just wait till 1? I'm in a meeting right now.
Penny put a poem in the
Okay,
chat.
at 1 when my meeting
I
ends.
think Catherine's not on mute, but
Goodbye.
I like what you put in there, Penny. It's true that
Great.
COVID is ending, but now gas and war create fear. And it's true. I mean, I think a lot of this is fear-based, but it's part of overcoming fear is getting educated and being, you know, taking part in informational sessions like this, and really, you know, taking a hard look at your business and if it's worth it to hold on to this money that's accruing interest like it is.
I have a quick question. I'm just trying to log into that capital access finance system, and it has partner information. It says headquarter location ID, and I go to look up, and then it sends me over to partner lookup, search for unique partner location.
I think you can skip that, or is it?
Oh, there's asterisks by it.
Do you have your loan paperwork?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because there are some questions you should be able to answer all the questions without like you should have all the information that you need to go through the verification process.
Okay.
Because
I'll
you
my
apply
loan.
for this loan by yourself, right, Catherine?
Pardon?
What kind of business entity are you?
A corp S.
So you're an S corp.
S corp. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm dyslexic too.
Okay, so the information is going to ask you probably your tax ID information, your name, the name of the whoever applied for the loan, which is probably the S corp name, not your name. So it's the S corp name, the tax ID number, and it's just it's a verification process to create the sign-in credentials. If you have any issues going through the verification process for the sign in into the website, use that number that we gave you. They'll help you go through
This number.
answer the questions.
Okay, yeah, that's at 804.
Yes.
Got it. I've been taking screenshots the whole time.
And actually we'll send you whoever attended the session, the deck. And then if you click on the link that I posted on the chat, It gives you also step-by-step instructions on how to
Okay.
log in into, but what we want to stress more than anything today is at least be aware of how much you really owe as of today.
That's my goal today. Sorry, you guys. I'm saying that out loud, so I had to commit.
Yes, because like Ashley said, it may be like now you may have to call that number because you cannot answer all the questions, and you should be able to, but you may, some of the answers may be a little confusing.
They were very helpful. I called because it was taking me a long time to verify my loan and log into that site. And I was getting so frustrated. I was like, how can I not figure out how to get in and get this information? And hence we're having this webinar to help all of you. Because I couldn't believe that. I'm like, can't do this. I'm sure there's lots of people out there that are also struggling. Well, I'm glad to hear from Mary that it's not always, right? It did help. I mean, these funds were necessary during the pandemic. So kind of as COVID is coming to a close, right, quote unquote, where things are returning to normal, to really reevaluate at this point if you do want to hold on to those funds.
Yeah, and that was the intent of the loans, to help people stay up in business and keep producing income, keep employing other people, and I'm glad that money actually help you stay and keep running your business.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question? It's Penny.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so I took out like 18,900 and something, whatever you didn't have to have collateral on, like the highest minimum, the highest I could take without collateral the first time. Then they asked maybe a couple months ago if we wanted to add additional funding. So the first one was like 18,900 and my second loan was 20,000. Can I pay the first loan off with that second money?
I mean, you can pay, so you have already used up the first 18,000, so you don't have that money.
Yeah, I just have the 20,000 sitting there, which I kind of just took out, like, oh, I'll just fill it out and see what happens kind of thing. It wasn't even thought out very well. I'm just like, I just took it and now it's sitting there. And now I'm thinking I should give it back or pay the first one back at least.
What is your working capital availability right now? Do you have enough to keep running the business?
I believe so, yeah.
Because that's what you need to see to make sure that you actually do have enough cash in the bank for working capital. And if you project for the rest of, let's say, 2022, that your inflows and outflows are going to be enough to support the business. And if you have enough, then you can use, I mean, the money is money. You just have this money sitting on a bank account. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's any idea. It's on your business bank account. So however you want to use that money to pay back the first loan is up to your discretion. So yes, you can just grab, if you want to be done with the first loan and pay it all off, there's no prepayment penalty. You just pay it off. So, and then with the income your business is producing, you can start making payments towards the second loan.
Okay. I could pay my WEV loan off too with that, right? Wink, wink.
I don't know. It's supposed to be for working capital. There's some operating expenses.
Okay, I'll just zip it.
I've been zipping mine right now.
Any other questions? Yeah, I think, we're really happy that you joined today, that, if there's even just a couple of you who are, we can share this information and, make, to get the message out there that pay it back if you can and keep it if you need it. Happy to stay on and answer any questions, but definitely, reach out to we can help. And also, this phone number for sure, if you have any questions, but really make sure you get into that Capital Access financial system and find out how much interest you've accrued.
So has anybody been receiving statements that are similar? I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, those are the statements, but they stop coming.
But they're very sporadic.
Yes, they are not consistent, and they, as far as I know, they kind of stopped coming last year.
Okay, but it does have my loan number, but that's not going to help me with the credentials for logging in. So I think I'll definitely need to use that 800.
Yeah, but you have your loan number, which is what they are. As long as you have that available, that readily available, that's very helpful because that's what they are
Okay.
going to ask you for. If you
Yes.
have that information, your loan number.
Okay, yes, yeah, that's good. Okay. I even got, somehow I ended up getting the bank to give me a copy of it. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. I haven't even looked at it. I don't even know how to look it up anymore in my files.
I just have one more thing to say. So I've been meeting with like kind of a counselor, kind of getting, just like WEVE, I have someone else that kind of venting all of the struggles over the last few years. But I guess this may be weird or out of the blue or whatever, but I just want to give everyone like a pat on the back or whatever for like literally switching our hats from like, I do graphic design and I was trying to find funding for a year, like we just all like just switched into different roles and advocated for our businesses and did what we need to do for our families. So I just want everyone to know that like, it took a lot of courage to sit down, to like find a moment in your day to like, I got to do this because I need to take care of my people. So I think it's really important we give ourselves like a pat on the back for that switch and role. And now we got to switch again and like, get back into who we are. But I think we all need that a girl.
I agree with you.
That's so great. Thank you so
High
much.
five, everybody.
Yeah, high fives. I mean, it's been a crazy time and it's good. The government was there and made themselves available and these funds available. And it's true. It took courage to access them. And like you said, now it's, time to just consider, do I want to hang on to this or no? And it served a purpose for many people. It definitely did.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are you gonna send us all this in our email today?
Yes,
The
yeah,
email,
I'll
this
send these
information?
slides. I'll send the slides and I'll also send a copy of the PDF that will be the step-by-step guide to accessing the Capital Access financial system.
Thank you. Thank you. Your classes was very, very informative. I greatly appreciate it. I'm on my lunch break, but it was very informative. So
Good.
I will share this information with some of the people I know.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Thank you.
please. That's what we ask. If you can communicate and share this information to as many people that took out Eidl loans and just have a conversation with them and ask them, do you know what your balance is? If you don't, I'll help you figure it out. Reach out to your business friends, partners, anybody in the community that you know of, and share this information with them.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll also have a recording of this that you can share out and that we'll put up on the WEV website.
That'd be great. Thank you guys so much.
Absolutely. Well, we can hang on. We have another 10 minutes or so if anybody wants to hang on and has any questions that we can help you with. Otherwise, we got on our soapbox today. We got our message out.
Thank you. I'm going to have to
All right.
drop off, you guys. This has been definitely priceless. Everything that the SBA, I could almost start crying because it's been a lot of support.
Oh, good.
Are you gonna have classes?
Bye, you guys.
Will there be
Thank you.
Hi, Catherine.
future classes?
There's,
Oh, go ahead.
yes, I think if you go to the website, right, Ashley, there's always a classes information that are free and easy to access.
Yeah, it depends on the type of class. We
yeah.
have lots of different business training classes. This is the one, that's specific about EIDL. But if there's a specific topic that you're interested in, let me know and I can let you know if we have anything available or upcoming.
Okay, I sincerely thank you and greatly appreciate your support.
Of course.
Thank you.
Any other final questions? It looks like that's it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
And you can either read